They watch in one tweet, so.
So just because there's 3 cameras doesn't necessarily mean there's only 3 people.
Okay, let's start with the prayers. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that holds some close and others distant. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. Lama Tunpa Chomden De Deshin Shekpa Dra Chompa Yang Takpa Zope Sangye Pal Gyawa Shakya Tupala Chak Salo Choto Kyapsu Chivu. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Swaha. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Swaha. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Swaha. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Soha. 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 So I thought we could start with some meditation. The last couple of weeks, we have been looking at the first of the 3 principal aspects of the path, which is the wish for freedom, the wish to become free of cyclic existence, samsara, and attain liberation from that, attain nirvana. And one of the ways to generate this wish to be free of samsara is to contemplate some of the various problems, difficulties, sufferings experienced in samsara. So last week we went through a list of 6 types of sufferings in samsara. So I thought we could just do a little bit of meditation on that before we move on to the next topic. So the first of the 6 general types of suffering is the the problem of uncertainty. So this means that as long as we're in samsara, cyclic existence, there's never 100% certainty about things. So for example, we make plans, and we might make very good plans, buy airplane tickets and, make all kinds of arrangements to travel someplace. But there's never 100% certainty that things will actually turn out as we planned, because things could go wrong. We could get sick, we could get into an accident, there could be an airplane strike, and there could be a coup d'etat in the country we're planning to travel to, and so on. So any number of possible things could happen and disrupt our plans. And just spend a few minutes thinking about that, and maybe see if you can think of some example from your own experience or someone else's experience that you know of about the uncertain nature of our experiences in samsara. And the second is dissatisfaction. This means that the various things in samsara, which can include people, relationships, as well as material things, are not able to give us genuine and complete and long-lasting satisfaction. One reason is because they are impermanent. They're not there forever. They change, and one day they'll go away. And also our mind is impermanent. Our feelings, our thoughts, our experiences are impermanent. So at one point in time, we might be happy with some person or some object, but later our mind could change and we might become dissatisfied with that. So again, see if you can think of some experiences from your own life to illustrate this. And then the third is that as long as we are in samsara, we have to die and leave behind our body and everything we had in our life again and again and again. Just like we were born and go through life and learn things and accumulate things and get into relationships with people and so on and so on. But then at some point, we die, our life comes to an end, and then our mind, our consciousness goes alone to the next life, leaving behind everything, all our friends and family, all our things, and our body. This is something we go through again and again and again, as long as we are in samsara. So just contemplate that and see if you can recognize that that is a problem, a shortcoming of samsara. And then the fourth one is sort of a natural outcome of the previous one, and that is that we are born again and again. So as long as we're not free from samsara, after each death, our mind, our consciousness comes back again into a new body, a new life. So in one sense, that may look nice and exciting. Oh, I get a new body and I get to start all over again. But then on the other hand, it takes a long time to develop as a human being. You know, we're born very, very small and very weak, fragile, helpless. And we need to spend many, many years just learning how to walk, how to talk, how to dress ourselves, how to eat. And then we have to go to school and start all over again, learning how to read and write and so on and so forth. So having to go through these experiences again and again and again in samsara, and it's not always pleasant. Like when we go to school, we may face bullies, we may have difficult teachers and difficult experiences and so on. So starting all over again as a brand new person, a brand new baby, isn't always fun, isn't always a nice experience, but it involves problems and difficulties. And then the fifth suffering is changing status again and again. So in some lifetimes we might be in really good situations, very comfortable, having all our needs and wishes fulfilled. But then that life comes to an end and we may find ourselves falling into a very unfortunate, deprived situation. And the same can happen within one lifetime. So in one lifetime, at some point in time, we might be in a really good situation, healthy and doing well financially, doing well with our friends and family and so forth. But then something would happen. We might get sick, we might get into an accident, we might lose our job and or lose a relationship. And then we might find ourselves down in the dumps, down in some very unpleasant situation and unhappy and so forth. So whenever we reach a high point, a high situation in samsara, it's never permanent. It can never stay there forever. But at some point we'll always lose that, fall down and into a less pleasant, less high situation. So try to think of some experience like that from your own life, or you could think of some public figure, for example, who went through such an experience. And then the sixth and last of these general sufferings is that of being alone. So it said that when we are born alone. We come into this world alone. And when we leave, we die, we go out of this world alone. So whatever friends, family, relationships we've gotten into during our life, they're only transitory. We leave them all behind when this life ends and we go off to the next life. And even during our life, there are times when we may feel very alone. For example, when we are unhappy or depressed or going through some difficult experience, even if there are people around us who care about us very much, but they can't really share what we're going through. It may be hard for them to really understand what we're going through, and so we may feel very alone in our suffering. So just contemplate that, see if you can find some examples in your own experience or in that of others to illustrate this situation. So when we contemplate the sufferings, the problems of samsara, we might feel somewhat depressed. It's not a very pleasant topic to think about, but the purpose is not to become depressed. The purpose is to generate the wish to be free of samsara, which is possible. The Buddha did it, and many other people at his time, his own disciples, and since his time, people who've learned about his teachings and put them into practice, were also able to become free of cyclic existence. So that is possible. And the whole purpose of contemplating suffering is so that we generate the wish to become free and then put our energy into doing the things that need to be done in order to become free. So see if you can generate even just a tiny bit the wish to become free of samsara, freeing yourself from this cycle of problems and difficulties and suffering that we have been in for so long already.
What did you call the fourth suffering?
The fourth one is being born again and again.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like we die again and again and then come back into a new life, a new birth again and again. Yeah. The other day I thought of another example of the fifth suffering of changing status. You probably have examples here in Denmark or in Europe, but I thought of Ronald Reagan. You probably heard of Ronald Reagan, right? Ronald Reagan?
Yeah, the president, but I don't know what happened to him.
Well, I mean, he had pretty interesting life. First he was a movie star. He was a Hollywood actor. He was in some movies. And then he got into politics and became the governor of California for at least one term, maybe more than that. And then he became president of the United States, like the highest position possible in America. And I think he was up for 2 terms. He was president. And of course, there's varied opinions about his job, how he did his job, but anyway. But then he got Alzheimer's. The last 10 years of his life, he was suffering from Alzheimer's, and he kind of disappeared from the public view. So I mean, don't really know what happened, but we know in general what happens when somebody gets Alzheimer's. They're not able to function properly and forget everything. So he just stayed at home with his wife, pretty much. But you can kind of imagine that he must have just probably lost his memory, his mental facilities or faculties and so on. So in a way, that's like going from a pretty highest position you could be in America to.
It's the same with Margaret Thatcher. She was also something like that.
Yeah.
She got not Alzheimer's, but she had I think senile or like
dementia.
Dementia, maybe, I think.
Really? Is she still alive? Or she passed away?
I'm not sure if she passed away or if she's still alive. I think maybe she's still alive. I'm not sure.
Okay, so let's see if we can get this to work. I wanted to move on to the next topic. So we finished the wish for freedom, although of course we covered it in a brief way. But we have to move on. So this is the second of the 3 principal aspects of the path, altruistic intention. And this is another term for bodhicitta. the mind of enlightenment. So in the text, the three principal aspects of the path, it starts with verse 6. So Lama Tsongkhapa says, since this wish for freedom, if unaccompanied by the altruistic intention, will not act as a cause for the perfect happiness of unsurpassable enlightenment, the wise arouse the supreme intention to become enlightened. So he's saying here that even if someone is able to develop the wish for freedom, or it's also called renunciation, that's actually a pretty incredible state of mind, because if you think about it, most people in the world don't want to be free. Most people in the world are enjoying themselves in samsara and completely happy to be in samsara. So they have no such wish to be free of samsara. So it's probably very, very, very rare that someone does actually recognize the suffering nature of the situation that we are in, and feel a sense of detachment, non-attachment to it, and want to become free from it. And this is comparable. The wish for freedom is comparable to the feeling that we would have if we were thrown into a prison. You know, if we got kind of kidnapped or arrested and thrown into a prison, we wouldn't be happy. We wouldn't feel, oh, this is a great place and I want to stay here. But we would just be thinking constantly, you know, how do I get out of here? I got to get myself out of here. Just trying to think of every possible way we could get ourselves out of that situation. So that state of mind that probably all of us would have if we were in that situation in prison is similar to the state of mind of someone who's generated the wish for freedom. Because in the previous verse, this is what Lama Tsongkhapa said. He said, you're constantly, day and night, thinking about how, you know, the wish to get out and how to get out, and putting your energy into that. And you have just no wish at all to stay in samsara. So that's a pretty amazing state of mind to have. And it comes about by contemplating again and again the situation of samsara, coming to really see that it's so unsatisfactory, it's so imperfect, it's so much like a prison, And so having the wish for freedom is amazing. However, what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying here is, if you only have the wish for freedom, renunciation, but you don't have the altruistic intention, bodhicitta, then you won't be able to attain the perfect happiness of unsurpassable enlightenment. That is Buddhahood. You won't be able to become a Buddha just with renunciation alone. And so, if our wish, our goal is to become a Buddha, to attain full enlightenment, then we need to generate this wish to become enlightened, the altruistic intention, bodhicitta. So he's just pointing out the importance, the I don't know the word, the necessity of generating bodhicitta in order to become enlightened. Do you remember what is the difference between, so with the wish for freedom, with renunciation, we can attain nirvana, we can attain liberation, we can free ourselves from samsara, but not attain Buddhahood. So there's a difference, or there are differences between those two states, nirvana and enlightenment, full enlightenment. Do you remember what the differences are?
I'm not sure, but isn't it that I mean, as an enlightened being, we would go out and actively help others to achieve the same state, while nirvana is just abiding in that state, abiding in the nirvana state.
Yeah, they say that when you attain nirvana, your mind goes into a state of like bliss, meditative bliss, and you're just not experiencing any suffering, and you don't have to take birth anymore. You've completely eliminated the causes of being born in samsara. So you've finished with that. And they say the arhats, those who have attained that state, just go into this state of bliss, meditative bliss, for a really long time, even eons. And they have no wish to come out, because they think they've finished their job. they can retire now. They don't have to do anything more. So they don't come out of this meditative state and work for others, whereas that never happens with someone who follows the bodhisattva path and attains enlightenment. So they've firmly decided that they will dedicate themselves to helping others, and they will not just go into a state of bliss, of nirvana.
But is it also, I heard at one point someone who said that at one point even those abiding in nirvana would have to go for enlightenment, basically.
Well, this is what this is in the Mahayana. This is what we say. The Theravada would say. They would say, no, they've finished. They don't have to do anymore. But in the Mahayana, they say, it's said in the sutras that the Buddhas will kind of shake them out of their blissful state and then get them to realize that they still have more work to do. Because, one of the differences between nirvana and full enlightenment is that there are subtle obscurations that are still in the mind of those who have attained nirvana. So they've eliminated ignorance and karma and delusions. Those are gross kinds of obscurations. But they haven't eliminated these very subtle obscurations. So they do still have more work to do to eliminate those. And once those have been eliminated, then one's mind is really, really amazing. A Buddha has incredible abilities and qualities that someone who's attained nirvana doesn't have. So it's not just a question of, one not wanting to help sentient beings and the other does want to help sentient beings, but, a Buddha has many, many more abilities and qualities than an arhat, because of having eliminated those subtle obscurations. So, of course, being an arhat is a wonderful thing, a wonderful accomplishment, but it's not the highest. It's not the best that we can do. And it's also not fulfilling our real potential. We have this potential to become fully enlightened. So if we attain nirvana, we haven't fully developed that potential that we have, even for ourselves. We haven't, raised ourselves to the highest state that could be achieved. And we also are not able to work for others in the full way that we could. So it's just like not a complete state. So we need to understand that. It's good to understand the difference between nirvana, mere self-liberation, and full enlightenment, and be able to see how much more we can do for others if we do attain full enlightenment. So that's why in some of the longer texts of the Lamrim, there's a list of the different benefits, the benefits of developing the altruistic intention and eventually becoming a Buddha, so that we generate the wish to do that, to go that route. So just to mention a few, it said that even someone who hasn't yet become a Buddha, but is a bodhisattva, who's working on the way to enlightenment, even a bodhisattva outshines the arhats, because the arhats have attained this wonderful state of nirvana. But the attitude of a bodhisattva is thinking of all living beings. They are totally dedicated to helping every single sentient being in the universe with unconditional love and compassion. So they have this incredible, magnanimous attitude towards all living beings, and that it just isn't there in the mind of the arhats. They do have compassion and love, but not the same not to the same extent, because they don't feel this wish to help all living beings. Okay, so they're lacking in that. And so it's said that if you have bodhicitta, the wish to become enlightened, this altruistic intention, wish to become enlightened to help all sentient beings, then everything you do becomes kind of magical, becomes extremely powerful and precious. So even eating ordinary things, eating, sleeping, and working and playing, and those kind of things, on top of meditation and spiritual actions that we do. So even these ordinary things that we do, if they're done with the attitude of bodhicitta, then they become the cause of enlightenment. So even eating can become the cause of enlightenment, because become something beneficial for all sentient beings. I mean, you've heard Lama Zopa Rinpoche talk about this and the benefits of bodhicitta, and how we should try to do everything with bodhicitta, because then it becomes so powerful and so beneficial for all sentient beings. So everything that the Bodhisattva does is just so wonderful and fantastic and beneficial for all sentient beings. And they're doing all these things not as a burden, not, oh, wow, I have to do all this work and it's so hard, but they're doing it with joy. That's one of the 6 perfections, is joyous effort. Joyous effort means you're happy to do all these positive actions. You do them with joy, with a sense of great joy, and you don't get tired or bored or worn out. You just want to keep doing more and more and more. So you can see that with our lamas, this holiness and Rinpoche and so on, just the incredible joy that they have to just go on and on and on, helping sentient beings and doing the practices that will enable them to become enlightened. So having the altruistic intention, bodhicitta, is just really, really, really something awesome, really awesome and inspiring. And we can do it. So it's not like you have to be a special person to be able to be a bodhisattva, but we can all become bodhisattvas. So it's possible for us to develop this state of mind, develop bodhicitta, and then, turn ourselves into a bodhisattva. And also, not only, one time Rinpoche was talking about this, and I found it really inspiring. He says, when we do something with bodhicitta, even something small, like offering a stick of incense or candle to the Buddha, or eating our dinner or whatever, if we're doing this with bodhicitta, or even meditating for 5 minutes on bodhicitta, then that action becomes the cause for enlightenment. Of course, it will bring us to enlightenment, but it also becomes the cause of all the good things on the way to enlightenment, like, good rebirths in our future lives. So in all of our future lives, we'll be born in good situations, have good conditions, have all the conditions we need to be able to continue following the path to enlightenment. So it's like we're going to have all these great things on the way to enlightenment. And then attaining all the realizations of the path to enlightenment, like calm abiding, the wisdom realizing emptiness, and so on and so on. So all those are fantastic realizations. So it's not like, we have to wait till enlightenment to get the benefits of our actions, but all along the way up to enlightenment, we'll receive benefits. And also in this lifetime, we don't even have to wait till next lifetime, but even in this lifetime, we'll experience benefits of bodhicitta, because it's such a beautiful state of mind, and we can cultivate more love and more compassion, more altruism, more concern for others. It brings so much joy and happiness in our mind. It's like a real cause for benefit for ourselves. And also our relationships with other people will go better, because we're not so likely to be angry and selfish and greedy. Or bringing altruism into our relationships, so they will go better. And people will like us, which is always nice, to be liked by other people. Look at the Dalai Lama. He's so popular. Thousands, tens of thousands of people want to go to see him wherever he goes. And it's not because he's, like a football star or a movie star, but he's so compassionate. So so there'll be many benefits that we can experience even in this lifetime. So like from now up to enlightenment, there'll be benefits that we experience from generating bodhicitta and doing things with bodhicitta. And then the benefits, the beneficial results don't end with enlightenment, but that's just the beginning in a way, because once you're enlightened, then you work, for forever, however long it takes, until all sentient beings are free of samsara. So you have all this energy and all these qualities and abilities, and of course joy in doing so, and working for the benefit of sentient beings. And so all of those results come from our actions that are done with bodhicitta. So again, even a small action that just takes a few minutes done with bodhicitta becomes the cause for all those beneficial results up to enlightenment, and even beyond enlightenment, after enlightenment. So I'm not expressing it in the way that Rinpoche did, but it was just a very inspiring talk that he gave, and really boosted my energy to try to work on cultivating bodhicitta. So it is helpful to think, to hear about, to contemplate, and get familiar with the benefits of bodhicitta, so that we feel, oh yeah, I really want to do that. And it's not that difficult. Even if we just spend a little bit of time each day generating bodhicitta, then slowly it will build up in our mind. So anyway, the conclusion here is that if we want to achieve Buddha, we want to become a Buddha, we want to achieve Buddhahood and help all living beings, it's not enough just to generate renunciation, the wish for freedom, but we also have to generate bodhicitta, the altruistic intention. But the other way around works as well. Now, some people might think, oh, I don't need renunciation, I'll just go for bodhicitta. That's much more pleasant. I don't want to think about all the suffering of samsara. That's really depressing, and so let's skip over that and just generate bodhicitta. But that doesn't work. It's not possible to really generate bodhicitta and follow the bodhisattva's path if we don't generate renunciation first. You know why?
I'm not sure if it's right, but I guess it's. If you don't realize the sufferings of samsara, then also it's much harder to have compassion for all sentient beings being in that state, I guess.
Yeah, because when we generate bodhicitta, what we feel is, I want to help all sentient beings become free of samsara and lead them to nirvana and enlightenment. So we have to be able to see samsara as, an undesirable situation. And they say if we don't generate the wish to free ourselves from samsara, if we don't see how samsara is suffering, it's like being in prison and want to get out, how can we generate that feeling about other people, about other beings? So actually bodhicitta, the altruistic intention, is generating renunciation, wishing to free ourselves from samsara, and then extending that same feeling, that same attitude towards everybody else. Yeah. So bodhicitta is actually extending renunciation to include all other sentient beings. So, trying to skip over renunciation and just develop bodhicitta doesn't work. It's not going to be real bodhicitta. But we can work on them both at the same time. Yeah. So when we are contemplating the suffering nature of samsara, seeing samsara suffering, we can see it in terms of ourself, but we can also see it in terms of all other beings as well. That we have this expression in English, we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same sea of suffering and samsara. And we all wish to get out. We all should get out. Let's get ourselves out of here. So I was thinking, they don't normally talk about self-compassion in the traditional teachings. You know, they talk about compassion for others, feeling love and compassion for others, but they don't normally talk about generating compassion and love for yourself. But to me, it seems that the wish for freedom, renunciation, is actually compassion for yourself, even though they don't normally mention that. But it is looking at yourself and saying, wow, I'm in this situation of samsara, and this is really bad. I don't deserve this. I deserve better than this. I don't want to be here. I want to get out. I want to get myself out of suffering. So that's like compassion, self-compassion, compassion for yourself. So we need to develop that. We need to develop compassion for ourselves, wishing to get ourselves out of suffering, and then be able to, you know, extend that same compassion to other beings, other living beings. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we generate the altruistic intention? So the next verse says, swept away by the strong currents of 4 great rivers, bound by the tight bonds of actions which are hard to escape, ensnared in the iron meshes of conceptions of a self, beings are shrouded in thick darkness of ignorance. So here he's talking about the situation of sentient beings in samsara and how they're suffering. So the first line, he mentions these 4 great rivers, which were over here. This comes, I think it's in the Abhidharma text, the 4 great rivers. So one is ignorance that doesn't understand the true nature of things, seeing things as existing in ways that they don't. So just being confused about reality. And then incorrect views. So that can include, for example, believing there's a real self, a real I somewhere inside of us, and grasping at that. And in fact, such an I doesn't exist as we believe it. But you know, grasping at that I is actually the basis for all of our other disturbing emotions, anger and greed and jealousy and pride and fear and so forth. Other incorrect views are, for example, believing there's no such thing as enlightenment, there's no such thing as karma, there's no such thing as reincarnation. And also having views about things, you know, the way things exist, and that don't help us get out of samsara, but can cause us to just be more stuck in samsara. And then delusions. So this can include attachment, hatred, and so forth of the desire realm. So the desire realm is where we are. This is one way of dividing up samsara into one situation in samsara is what's called a desire realm. And it's so called because beings in the desire realm are characterized by having a lot of desire, a lot of attachment. So we and animals and the lower realms, and also some types of gods, some types of devas are in the desire realm. So we have very gross kind of delusions in the desire realm. And then there are these other 2 realms called the form and the formless realms, which these are devas, these are celestial beings. They're higher than us, more pure, but they're still not free of samsara. They still have delusions. Their delusions are more subtle, not so gross. For example, in those realms, there's no anger, there's no hatred, but they still have attachment. They're attached to their, you know, pleasure, their bliss, which is mostly meditative bliss. So they still have attachment. They still have pride. Yeah, they're proud of themselves where they are. So they still have delusions. They're subtler, more subtle than our delusions. But they are delusions, and they keep these beings stuck in samsara. So this is just the 4 great rivers. And basically, they're just delusions. They're mental states that exist in the minds of all the beings in samsara and keep us stuck in samsara. So that's what's meant by the four great rivers. And then he goes on to say, bound by the tight bonds of actions, that's karma, which are hard to escape. So karma, the karma that we create in this lifetime, but also the karma we've created in past lives, is still with us. You know, within our mind, we still have the imprints of our karma. And he's saying this is like being bound, like you can imagine if somebody's hands and feet are tied up really, really tight, and so one is not able to move and be free and independent and get oneself out of this situation. So this is a situation of sentient beings in samsara, that we are bound by our karma. We want happiness, but we don't always manage to get the happiness that we want because we haven't created the karma for the happiness that we want. We don't want suffering, but we do meet with suffering that we don't want because of our karma. And so karma keeps us unfree, keeps us from being really free to experience what we want. So it's like being tied up. And then the third line says, ensnared in the iron meshes of conceptions of a self. So believing in a real self, a real I, that in fact doesn't exist. It's just a creation of the mind. But as long as we're not free from mistaken conceptions about ourselves, then that again becomes like something that keeps us bound. Like he says, like an iron mesh, like a net that one is stuck in. So, and then the fourth line that says we are shrouded in thick darkness of ignorance. So ignorance is sometimes compared to being in the dark, being in darkness. Because when it's dark and there's no light, we can't see things clearly. So we can make many mistakes in the dark. So ignorance is kind of a darkness that covers our mind and stops us from being able to see things as they are, the reality of things. So because of that, then we make all kinds of mistakes. We get into all these other delusions and create negative karma and so forth. So he's just giving a description of the situation of sentient beings in samsara, which includes us as well. So if we imagine this, it's kind of a powerful image. If you imagine some person who is tied up, you know, their hands and feet are tied up really, really tight, and then they're wrapped in this iron net and thrown into a river, a very strong river, you know, with a very strong current that's sweeping them along. So that person is in a pretty terrible situation. And if we saw somebody or heard about somebody who's in that situation, I think we would naturally feel compassion for them. And then on top of that, it's dark. You know, the whole situation is in darkness. And so, you know, that makes it very hard for this person to see their way out, how to get out of this situation. It's also hard for other people to see this person and how to get them out of the situation. So there's many, many layers here, many, many factors making this situation really, really painful, really difficult. And if this person was actually somebody dear to us, somebody very important to us, somebody we love very much, like our mother, our father, our friend, our child, then we would really feel strongly that I have to get this person out of this situation. This is terrible. This is terrible. I have to rescue them. So, so he's using these images, these kind of analogies to illustrate the situation of sentient beings in samsara, how they're, because of their delusions, because of their karma, because of their ignorance, not seeing the true nature of things, then they're just in this situation of being in samsara, being swept along, without any choice, without any control, life after life after life in samsara. So this is one way of contemplating the situation of sentient beings to help us generate altruism, the wish to free them from suffering. So let's take a break at this point, 10 minutes. I think there's drinks upstairs, yeah? What do you think of the tables?
I think they're very functional.
And light.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're. I mean, of course, wooden tables would be prettier, but they're
heavy.
Huh?
Heavier.
Yeah, but they're quite functional, I think.
Mm.
And they're quite okay, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, better than having things on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, the next verse in the text continues looking at the sufferings of sentient beings, endlessly born in worldly existence, and in those births incessantly tormented by 3 kinds of suffering. Reflecting on the conditions of your mothers in such a predicament arouse the supreme intention. So having one life in samsara with lots of suffering is already bad, but samsara is such that we have life after life after life after life, like going around and around and around in a circle. So that makes it even worse. Again and again experiencing birth and death and all the various sufferings of samsara, including the 3 types of suffering. Do you remember the 3 types of suffering?
All pervasive is one. Suffering of change. And what is called the first one? Ordinary suffering?
Yeah, they call it suffering of suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. Suffering of suffering, that's just, ordinary suffering, what everybody recognizes as suffering and wants to get free of. And then suffering of change, happiness, pleasant experiences that don't last, that are temporary, transitory, and so they don't really fulfill us or satisfy us and just leave us, they dump us again and again. And then the all-pervasive suffering, which the Dalai Lama says that's the most important one to understand, because he says only Buddhism really identifies that 3rd type of suffering. And that's the suffering of just being, our mind being caught up with delusions and karma, having karmic imprints of all our actions done in the past that, and kind of throw us into suffering again and again, and delusions, ignorance, especially ignorance that doesn't see the true nature of things. So that's the main type of suffering, just not being free of karma and delusions, and that pervades all of samsara. So even in the highest realms, where there's almost 0 other type of suffering, there's very long lives, very blissful existence, but they still have karma and delusions. They're not free. They're still trapped in samsara. So even the beings in the highest realms of samsara are subject to suffering, the 3rd type of suffering. So contemplating how sentient beings are subject to these different kinds of suffering, and he mentions here our mothers. So this is it's actually mentioned by the Buddha. I found in a sutra, in the Pali Canon, where the Buddha spoke about how he says, I cannot see any, or it's difficult for me to see anyone who has not been your mother, who has not been your father, who has not been your sister, your brother, and so on and so on. So this is actually spoken by the Buddha, that all sentient beings have been our mothers and our fathers, and so on and so forth. So contemplating that, thinking of sentient beings as our mothers and other dear, close relatives to us, makes it more powerful, more compelling that we help them. Because if we do have a mother who's very loving and caring and, brought us up in a very good way and did so much for us when we were small, it's only natural that if she's in trouble, if she needs help, she gets sick and old and needs help, that we would just feel, of course, I have to help her. I have to help her. I have to help my mother. We drop everything to go and help our mother. So realizing or contemplating that every sentient being has been our mother. Every sentient being has helped us many, many times in our past lives. So that gives a really, really strong motive to repay their kindness, to help them as well. So, so these verses, in these two verses, Lama Tsongkhapa is just giving a kind of brief way of how to develop bodhicitta, how to develop the altruistic intention, mainly by thinking about the suffering of sentient beings. But in the more extensive Lamrim texts, like the Lamrim Chenmo, the Great Lamrim, the Middling Lamrim, and so on, there's much more explanation about the different methods for developing bodhicitta, which you've probably heard, like the 7-point cause and effect method. And that's the one which talks about sentient beings as our mothers. And then there's the other method, which is called equalizing and exchanging self for others. And this is this consists of 5 points to meditate on. You probably heard this as well, but it doesn't hurt to go through them again. So the first point is equalizing self and others. And there, what we do is we contemplate how we ourselves want happiness. I want to be happy, and I don't want to suffer. That's the way I am. And then we extend that to others. And it's good to do this not just en masse, like all sentient beings are the same, but it's good to do it one by one, starting with people we already have good feelings for, easy to feel concerned about, and then strangers, people who are a little more distant from us, and then eventually more difficult people, enemies. So gradually thinking of sentient beings one by one, and then just thinking that just like I want to be happy, this person wants to be happy. Just as I don't want to suffer, this person also does not want to suffer. So just, it's kind of simple, but very powerful, to contemplate that others are just like me, basically. And it's like the golden rule in Christianity, don't do to others what you wouldn't want them to do to you, and do to others what you would want them to do to you. So understanding that we are all basically the same. We want to be happy. We want to be treated well. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to be treated badly. Just contemplating that more and more and more and more, then it breaks down barriers between oneself and others and helps to bring a sense of closeness to others, and also a sense of equality, that we're all basically the same, not so different. And there's a book by Jeffrey Hopkins. Jeffrey Hopkins, heard of Jeffrey Hopkins? He's one of the first Westerners to learn Tibetan Buddhism, and is mainly known for his books on emptiness, books and translations of teachings on emptiness. There's one book he called, I think it's called A Truthful Life or something like that. And it's about bodhicitta, basically, going through the different ways of developing bodhicitta. But he's bringing in his own story and how he got involved in Buddhism and so forth. And he said that one of his first teachers back in the 60s, where there weren't many people interested in Buddhism, was a Mongolian Lama living in New Jersey. And Jeffrey Hopkins was still a student at that time. I think he was studying at Harvard. He started learning from this Lama. And the first practice this Lama taught him was this. Just meditating on how others are basically just like oneself. And he said sometimes he would stay up all night, just, sit all night meditating and just go through all the people he knew in his life. He'd go back to the, when he was a child, and his family and his kids in the neighborhood, and then the teachers and so on. You just go one by one, thinking of all the people he's ever known, and one by one, just contemplating this point. And I thought, wow, that would be really powerful to do. Quite amazing. I mean, I don't know how many people would be able to spend all night doing that, but it would be very powerful to even spend an hour contemplating different people one by one and how they want to be happy and don't want to suffer, just like oneself. So then, the second is contemplating the benefits of altruism, or cherishing others, as it's sometimes called. And it's actually good to do these two in kind of tandem with each other. The benefits of caring about others, being altruistic, cherishing others, doing things for others, being kind to others, helping others, not harming others, and so on. So how beneficial that is compared to being self-centered. So if we are selfish and only care about ourselves, that often leads to unwise actions like killing. I mean, most of the horrible things that happen in the world, killing and violence and war and corruption and greed and injustice and so forth, we look at where those come from, why people engage in those things, then if not always, in most cases, we would find the person is very self-centered, very focused on themselves and their own needs and wishes, their family, their friends, their country, and not really thinking about others in a wider sense. So the point is self-centeredness, being really attached to just me and having that the focus of your life, the center of your life, how that leads to so many problems. Whereas altruism, caring about others in a very genuine way, leads to so much good, so much happiness, so much benefit. And then the fourth point is having contemplated these previous points, seeing that basically we are all the same. We all want to be happy. We don't want to suffer. And then seeing that if we only care about oneself, and don't care about others, this leads to lots of problems. And on the other hand, cherishing others, being altruistic, leads to lots of good things. Then that leads us naturally to this next point, which is called exchanging self for others. And what that basically means is changing our attitude, making the decision to be more altruistic and less self-centered. So changing the focus, away from just me, my needs, my wishes, and open up our heart and our love and compassion to more and more and more and more people. Then the fifth point is Tonglen, taking and giving. And this is a practice, meditative practice, that helps us to make this kind of change. So you probably heard about Tonglen and practice Tonglen. I was just thinking today about Pema Chodron, who's probably one of the most well-known and popular Buddhist teachers in the world today. And she's probably made Tonglen very, very popular as well, because she teaches it a lot. Her books, many books of hers talk about Tonglen. So it's been quite amazing, a way of spreading the idea of Tonglen to more and more and more people. And not only her, of course, lots of other teachers as well. Of course, our precious Rinpoche and His Holiness and Sogya Rinpoche and so on. So the practice of Tonglen has become much more well-known and practiced in the world today. So that's as much as I have to talk about tonight, but I thought we have a little bit of time left. Maybe we could do some meditation before we finish. this anymore. So maybe we can just briefly contemplate those 5 points in the method of developing bodhicitta. So the first one is equalizing oneself and others. Good way to start that is just to look at our own mind and our own attitudes and recognize that we ourselves don't want suffering, don't want pain or problems. And what we do want is happiness, good experiences. So just recognize that in yourself. And don't think there's anything wrong with feeling this way. It's not wrong. It's not selfish to want to be happy. We actually should be happy. It's in accordance with our true nature and the true nature of things. We should be happy. We deserve to be happy. We shouldn't have to suffer. It's not wrong to want to be happy and to be free of suffering. So just recognize that attitude in yourself and acknowledge it and accept it, that it's okay to feel that way. And now bring to mind one other person, someone you like, someone you find easy to care about, friend or someone in your family. And contemplate that that person feels the same way as you. In their mind or heart, they also have this wish to be happy and to not suffer. And now think of someone you don't know very well. Might be a neighbor or someone at work. Someone you're not really close to, but you also don't, it's not an enemy, you don't hate this person. You just have a kind of distant relationship with them. And do the same contemplation, thinking that that person too is basically just like you and just like the last person you thought of in their mind and heart. They simply want to be happy, to have good experiences, and they don't want pain or suffering or bad experiences. try to do the same with someone you don't like very much. It doesn't have to be your worst enemy, but just someone you find irritating, annoying, you find difficult to like. And try to understand that that person basically is just like you and the other two people you thought about. They have a mind, a heart, and within their mind or heart is the wish to be happy, the wish to not suffer. So now, see if you can extend this understanding to include everyone else, all living beings, whoever has a mind, who has thoughts and feelings. We're all basically the same. Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants pain or problems. Everybody just wants to be happy, have good experiences. Now just spend a few minutes contemplating the difference between an attitude of being self-centered, self-important, only caring about me, as opposed to an attitude of being altruistic, caring about others as well as ourself, opening up our mind and our heart to others and being more loving and caring, compassionate, taking others into consideration, trying to help them and not harm them, and so on. Just think about those two different attitudes and determine which one is better, is preferable. And then if you are able to see that being more altruistic is preferable, brings more benefits to yourself, to others, to everyone, then try to see that it is possible to change this in ourselves, to become more altruistic and less self-centered. It's a process. We can't just change overnight, but slowly we can become more concerned for others, more altruistic and less self-centered. And the practice of Tonglen, taking and giving, is a practice that can help us to change our mind and get more familiar with cherishing others, caring for others, and be less self-centered. And one simple way of doing Tonglen that we can use in our daily life is whenever we face some problem, some difficulty, even if it's just a headache or some physical discomfort, or if we have to wait in line, or we face some kind of unpleasant, irritating situation in our life, we can use that experience to practice Tonglen in a simple way. So bring to mind some problem that you may be facing right now in your life, or something that could happen to you, for example, tomorrow. And then think that I'm not the only person in the world who has to go through this kind of experience. Many other people do as well. And some of the other people who have this kind of experience have it even worse than me. My share of this type of problem is relatively small or minor compared with some people's. So as I am going through this experience and finding it unpleasant, difficult, unwanted, I'm in a position where I can understand those other people and how they feel. Because they don't want this problem just as I don't want it. And that can help me have compassion for them, help me empathize with them and how they feel, and have compassion for them. So then what we can do is voluntarily accept this situation, this suffering, this problem that we're experiencing. And in doing so, have the wish that by accepting this problem ourselves, may all those other people who have the same kind of problem be free of theirs. So it's like you say to yourself, I accept this suffering, this problem, and by doing that, may all the suffering and the causes of suffering of everyone, myself and others, be completely cleared away, be completely finished, disappear, become non-existent. So it's like you voluntarily take on the suffering on behalf of all the other people, all the other beings. And if you want, you can do this with the usual visualization imagining that the suffering of those other people, their beings, takes the form of some kind of dark smoke or fog, and breathe it into yourself. Imagine that it goes into the self-cherishing attitude at your heart and then dissolves and disappears. And then you can think of your positive energy, all the good qualities, the good karma, the good energy that you have, all the good things you have in your life. You can imagine that as very nice, clear, bright light. And imagine sending that out from your heart to others, other people, other beings. And it helps them find peace and happiness and whatever they need to be fulfilled and satisfied and eventually reach enlightenment. Okay, so now let's end the meditation and also our session tonight by doing a dedication. So recite the dedication prayers, but think that whatever positive energy we've created by being here tonight, doing meditation, listening to the talk, thinking about these ideas and so on, we've definitely created some good energy, some positive energy here. So let's share this with others, with all other people, all other beings everywhere, wishing that it will bring them peace and happiness, freedom from suffering, and eventually reach enlightenment. So there's some dedication prayers here. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Thank you.